Hello, everyone. We'll get started in a few minutes. If you would like to sign into the agenda, and if you have any open items, please add them. We'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Crow, would you mind adding my PR that me and Glenn worked on to the discussion for today?
I think I already did.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Glenn.
I have some powers now. Thanks, Brock. It worked. So
Good.
Okay, what am I now? Still an iPhone or?
You're a Zoom user, sir.
Oh, that didn't help then. I give up.
And in a way, aren't we all Zoom users?
Fair point.
All righty, folks. It is a few minutes after the top of the hour. Welcome to the November 2nd edition of the Education SIG. Do we have any new friends that are stopping by and would like to say hello and introduce themselves?
Hey folks, my name is Max Mitzi. I work for MLH, Major League Hacking. I'm here for the first time today. I have had conversations with a number of people in this group and in some of the wider groups. I'm very excited to be here, learn more, find out about all of your objectives, and yeah, really hopeful that we might be able to contribute to the great work that you've all planned.
Excellent. Welcome, Max.
Hi, my name's Dan. Sal, I think, introduced me to join here, and yeah, first time for me as well. Really excited to be part of it, and yeah, look forward to where I can help.
Excellent. Welcome, sir. Anybody else would like to introduce themselves? All righty. Can I get a volunteer to help taking notes, please? Glenn, thank you, sir. Everybody's welcome to type along. I'm trying to capture as much as we can, but I thank you, Glenn, for taking the lead on there. We have a couple opens we'll get to in just a few moments. Let's briefly go through the section updates. Dave is out with a family matter, so I'll talk about section one. Section one met last week, talked about the matrix, which we'll talk about here as a full group here shortly. And we also went through and I started reorganizing the layout of the plan so that it is more consistent and preparing us to start to file a bunch of issues for each of the goals we are interested in. I'll post a link to first plan section if you want to take a look to see the style we'd like to get the other sections molded into, where we're clearly marking milestones, providing details about what we need to do to achieve those milestones, and then ultimately we'll have an issue filed for each milestone. And then we will have estimates for time, costs, and materials in each section. Any questions around section one activities or anyone else from section one that wanted to add any additional color? All right, let's get updates very briefly from Glenn in section two.
Yeah, so mostly what we've been up to the last couple of weeks is actually thinking about the scope and services of the education platform. Already carving out how it should look like to actually facilitate also in the future where we're going and, all these different materials and data sets. We're pretty far with that. We didn't add it yet to the stream 2 because it's we still need to have some discussions with you and David about it. And then depending on where to put it, we can add it as well as goals or vice versa, whatever. But yeah, we have actually a very detailed plan there as well. And what we also actually did the past couple of days are adding the estimations of the goal items we have. And that's also one of the things actually for the open. We asked in the group today to also review a couple of those. Because we do think that some actually makes more sense to put them in stream 1 or in stream 3. But also a bit of clarification, for example, the scope of stream 1, because if it might be indeed, after the more clarification, it could be that also a couple of things should move into that one actually. So that was actually that for now. So we do meet actually also a part of the normal public meetings. I must say to keep speed and movement, we do meet quite a lot also when there is time. So maybe it would be an idea to also invite the people of stream 2 into a separate Slack if you're interested in working on education and the platform, etc. So if we have these ad hoc meetings and you do have some free time, you can always jump in as well. But I just also wanted to point that out. So that's it for now.
Awesome. Any questions for Glenn in section 2? And we'll talk about the item he has is open in a little bit. Did Sal join us? Is anyone interested in representing what's going on with section 3 today?
I was actually a
I
part of
could
the
talk
meeting
a
with
little
Scott.
bit.
I think the last meeting was just me and her, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of it was just waiting on stuff from other groups for right now. So yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot of progress because I think there's a lot of waiting going on.
Yeah, if I can add, related to the whole incentives thing, there's a plan to meet. Between myself and Sal and Clyde Seepersad and Samina Passat, trying to discuss some things involving incentivizing. In particular, thanks to Xavier, it turns out that Samina Passat is probably the right person within GitHub to try to do the whole showing, hey, you've got a badge. Clyde Seepersad's the lead of the Linux Foundation's training certification division. So who can help us point out things like how do you get information about various people when it's public. So we're trying to connect the pieces, the people together to make it all work out. Just to be clear, GitHub hasn't committed to do anything particular, but step one is talking, getting the right people together, and then going from there.
Just curious, I haven't used it externally in a very long time. Does GitLab or other repos like Bitbucket or SourceForge or anybody else, do they have the ability to show badges as well?
I don't know that today.
Yes, they do.
Okay, but obviously it's something they could implement even if they didn't. So, and Dan's obviously
like we're talking about markdown badges, right? Yeah. They it's at the top of the repo.
Oh, okay, that's you. Yeah, but I think what we're talking about is badges about people, not files in a README.
Oh yeah, the achievement thing is a GitHub only thing.
Okay. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. So I don't know who to contact within GitLab, but hopefully we can get things going.
We'll put it in the back.
For what it's worth, though, I think the achievement things is in beta in GitHub as well. Like it's not a full thing yet.
Right.
Well, thank you for that addition, David. Appreciate that. I want to briefly talk about the 2 sets of personas we're working with. This is from the matrix. If you take a look, we have we're going to be organizing and categorizing our training based off of these personas, these types of learners, these are different areas of learning. And this is going to help us eventually make learning paths or be able to have that tiered or focused education pathway for people. So if you have any feedback, today is going to be our last day to do that, because right after this call, I'm unleashing the SIG to begin entering training information and start categorizing it. Does anybody have any feedback about learner or professional personas they wanted to share right now?
Can you post the link to the to what you're looking at here?
I'm
Unleash
looking at the
SIG.
meeting agenda.
All right.
We are under the agenda section with the beautiful little puce header.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
I just have a crazy number of tabs.
Oh, I know. All right. Let us, if I could turn your attention briefly towards the matrix, which is the link below the table in the agenda. This is how we plan on organizing the material we find, so that this is key to section 1, which section 2 is very excited to be waiting on. So basically, any type of educational artifact, we'd like to have that noted, have a link to it, have a description about what it is. Is it a class? Is it a lab? Is it a presentation, a podcast? You know, there's different categories, and each one of these columns has either a drop down or a tick box, depending on what we're looking for. So if we're looking at so for example, hacking web and API from OWASP, you know, that's class, and we would go left to right, ticking off what domains we feel are relevant for this particular thing, which of the personas are relevant, if there's a language that is applicable, or multiple languages, we would like to note that. So if there's something that's Java or C, we just like to flag that, or if it's more just universal development practices. And we'd like to have it noted in column AD, the date we updated that last, just so we know how fresh that entry is or when it changed. And then column AE, if you could just note if you're the person that made this entry, that way if we have questions, we can circle back to you. It's not that you own that training or we need you to do anything, but just so we have question. I see that Judy had entered a bunch of stuff. So if I have questions about those things, I can go ask Judy directly instead of like spamming on Slack or whatever.
So what would you call like the LF course? I mean, it's not an in-person class. I don't see any of the
It's
categories.
just class. I don't care about in-person or virtual, just classes.
Oh, but it's not a class. It's a course you take, but it's not you don't get in a group and sit down and.
So I would categorize that as class.
Okay.
We need to think a little more generically.
The word, yeah, the word, yeah, that word has very specific meanings to most educators that you don't mean, I don't think.
Today is the last day. If the group agrees, we've talked about this several times already, but if the group agrees today, we could change class to course, if that is amicable to everybody. Does anybody else have strong feelings about changing that?
Just to give an international perspective, outside of the US, courses are really big to turn, but our focus here is more US centric.
Okay.
So would you think that course would be better or class would be better? I don't understand the course.
Is anyone opposed to making that change? All right, we're changing it.
No, I'm just thinking, but So what is actually like a class? I mean, a course can be online, self-study, whatever, but a class is really with a trainer in a classroom, you know?
Yeah.
And we also have that as a definition and deliverables, but
Does it add any value to separate the two as we are categorizing things? Is there substantially any difference to us that something is potentially instructor led versus a CBT type thing?
I mean, if you're going to capture it, you might you might also want to include in-person classes. I mean, I teach an in-person class. I've also developed an electronic course. I think
So
of those quite different.
would it add value to this group to add that as a distinction? Is that unique enough? We need to take separate actions on them.
I would suggest it.
Okay.
I think from a learner perspective, just putting an ed tech hat on, synchronous or asynchronous is a really important distinction in terms of how people can engage with a program, right? So whether it's in person or virtual, I think is another distinction, as in, do I need to be in a specific place or geography to take part in a class? But the synchronous versus asynchronous, I think is worth capturing.
Judy, you had your hand raised. Sorry about that.
We also have static guide documentation. So I'm just wondering the difference between the class core stroke static guide that you can actually be self-directed on. But that's not that's not what my hand was up for something else. If it's the last day.
It is the last day.
I don't want to interrupt, but I had asked an offline comment, and I tagged maybe Dave on this, about, because I've tested it and tried to put in some stuff myself. I came across free, not free. So free only, is that what we're moving towards at the moment? Because otherwise we're going to need, this is free, open source, this is a paid course, or paid learning.
Yeah.
And
well, I would just differentiate the two. It's free or not free, open source, not open source.
I just a heads up really fast, because I came across loads of stuff that I didn't put in because it was paid. And now I've lost all the links.
That's an interesting thing we haven't talked about, Judy. Thank you.
So
what does the group feel? Do we want to add a column?
Maybe we should do that for Thursday's conversation. I apologies, I missed last week's with clashes on meetings. I need to duplicate myself some days. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up of my concern with coming across stuff, missing stuff, because I know we had earlier conversations actually in this SIG meeting with regard to having budget for paid resources as well. So for example, there's loads of great resources on LinkedIn Learning, but that's paid resource or company-led paid resource, so they're now eliminated. There's loads of great classes on Pluralsight, on Security Journey, so they're now eliminated from this. I won't keep harping on with silly examples, but
well, and like we've cited ISC squared and SANS as other resources. Not necessarily we would use them, but we cited them. So what does the group feel? Do we want to add a column, free versus fee? Just so we can capture, this is an interesting piece of education. If we have to pay for it, we might not elect to do anything with it, but at least it's nice to know and have it in our reference library. Christine, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna +1 that, because even if you do capture it and you do nothing with it, at least you have it.
Are there any objections to adding the free versus fee aspect for training?
my thoughts group is not to maybe create an actual duplicate spreadsheet. Is that too much? Rather than have it all in the one and then what do you think?
I will add a column shortly after this call. Jacob.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was gonna add on to the fee-based with the because you've got things like udemy.com and some of those other ones out there that are, I mean, $13 you can buy a 40-hour cybersecurity course or programming course, which is which isn't bad, and I find them to be pretty informative.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback. So it sounds like we're not in opposition. I will get the data validation adjusted here. Does anyone have any additional feedback or any requests for changes or any questions about anything in the list? All right, so I'll give you to the end of today. Daniel.
I just wanted to know, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, because we're still reviewing. Michael is taking a look and reviewing and making sure that we have all the sneak stuff properly registered in here. So
nice.
End of day today, we'll try and get that done.
Yeah, and I don't mean so I don't mean we need to have all the educational artifacts loaded today, but I want to have the spreadsheet locked down that this is what we're going to do, and to encourage people to start filling it out.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. No, yeah.
I think the other thing that could be worth capturing here is the scope, just in a rough number of hours of how long it would take to consume a live document or course. So some of these could be 100 hours, some of them could be 30 minutes. That I think would be really helpful for people to navigate these resources from a consumption standpoint.
That is another good piece of feedback, Max. Thank you for coming today. I will also add that, and I'll figure out a way to quantify that. Anything else from the group before we move on to Glenn's Open?
I'll put my hand down and put it back up again. Just again, when I was actually filling out, for example, I just want to clarify before I spam this document. Safe code training, that one link leads to many training courses. So are we only looking for one higher level link, or do we want now to spam a spreadsheet with 50 courses from safe code training? It doesn't make sense to me, you know. Maybe we can think about that as well. Are we just at the moment collecting higher level resources and then having a hierarchy of lower trained courses within that? The safe code is a good example. Actually, it leads to many different courses. If you want to have a look, and we can discuss it offline or at our next call, but it's just for ease of use of the spreadsheet, also ease of use of whomever is going to be reviewing this or reviewing it together, sanity check-in.
Any thoughts from the group on that? How we would like to represent an aggregation of content?
Well, I was just thinking out loud, but I think the idea is, you know, okay, to have like indeed the cost of training, if it's free or not, etc. Okay, that sounds interesting, but the whole idea is to have open source material that we then can consume and make available in the platform, right? So, so only a link, yeah, it will help, but in the end, the librarian or that person that will curate and check the content will then break it down, hopefully in a right format, and work with that open source project to then be able for the other platform like SKF to consume it and present it there. So I don't know, maybe Judy, you missed a bit of the context, but yeah.
I just put the link, maybe I didn't clarify very well what I was trying to say. So I've just put the link into the chat of the safe code training that I was speaking about. So all the courses listed in that would we like those individually listed on the spreadsheet or just one link to safe code training? That was my my question, I suppose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, when I look at it, like the first 5, 1, 2, 3, or the first column basically of the courses, they look like a more covering different concepts, while the others, they're just a very deep dive into a specific thing, right? So I feel like the left ones should be its own entities, because one is about secure development in cloud, other one like system hardening. So yeah.
So at this early stage, do we want that detailed breakdown, or should we collect where everything is initially, spreadsheet, and then go for the detailed breakdown thereafter? That
makes more sense to me, indeed, that approach, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Same.
My understanding, and really, Krob, I'm my eyeball's going 2 different many places, and I may have pulled my eye off the ball on this, but my understanding is the next step after this is trying to figure out, okay, do we have, if somebody wants to take a set of courses to learn this, where can they go? If we do, you're absolutely right. Both Safe Code and OWASP have a lot of very specific individual narrow courses. But first of all, I think if we do that, it's going to be a huge long list, incredible amount of work. And I don't think that we need that for this. We're just trying to figure out, hey, if you want to learn a large swathe of material, where can you go? And if they deliver a large number of atomic things, but you can approach it as a single unit, I think that's fine. But we're not, I don't think we're trying to, all of these can, I'm sure, be looked at and broken down into different pieces. So I would start by listing them as a single, and if that's if that's not granular enough, we can go back. At least we'll have a place to start.
I agree, David. Randall.
Yeah, plus one to what David was saying. Also on that PR that we're going to review later, there are actual time frames of like labs. So you'll get an idea of what it actually takes to integrate like those labs and put those labs together. Furthermore, I do have a diagram that I can send on Slack. So if you guys wanted to see how the content somewhat comes together on SKF, just so that you could know, because it does work kind of in the way David is describing. You do have to think a lot about content atomically. So he's like right on the money with that.
All right. David, did you have an additional comment?
Yeah, you asked, we talked about a new column for fee versus free. We got another column, I think, is it open data or not? And basically, I'm saying that instead of open source, because obviously we're not talking about data. We're not talking about necessarily source code, but can be freely used, reused, redistributed, that sort of stuff. So I'm thinking things like CC BY, not necessarily MIT or Apache, although that would work too.
Yeah, and that
CC BY SA, that kind of thing.
So, for example, I talked with the Intel Secure Open Source Development Center of Excellence tomorrow, and I'm going to potentially try to get them to donate and contribute material. So that could be something that some companies may allow us wholesale to say go ahead and reuse, republish. Others we might just might have it as reference. We need to make our own potentially. So that's a another good suggestion, David.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be donated. Just can it be
reusable?
Reusable can be brought into other things. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Any additional, Randall again?
I was also going to say, piggybacking off of that. So if the material is closed, it's going to be hard for us to like enrich it and connect it to other material. So like beyond it being like it exists, we really wouldn't have access to the material to enrich it or like add labs, stuff of that nature.
We can,
I think
even though we might not be able to provide the training, we might be able to be a pointer. So if someone needs some very specific type of training, we can say, we're aware this exists. You need to go talk
Correct.
to these folks. So again, just more as a router.
But like the lexicon and like being able to like integrate that in and like make connections with like sections of David's course, because David's course is being broken up atomically. That's only going to be available for the courses that are openly available, and like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Which is why I'm proposing is another column: free or fee, and is a open data question mark. I think we'll at least give the quick summary that at least some people are going to want to know.
Yeah, I like that.
I asked this question in chat, but is it, and you may have said this already, so apologize, but is the goal of the librarian will vet what these things are? Because, you know, our conversation around course and class, you know, to various providers are going to be different. Like sometimes a course is like literally something with materials where you test out of it and go. And sometimes people, it'll just be a course is just like a guide, right? Just some written information. Just making sure like when people go through, they don't get a list of sort of spam. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
is that the librarian's job, or?
That makes a lot of sense. And actually that's one of the topics that we actually wanted to discuss and address as well on the open agendas.
All right. Do you want to move to that now? Or is there any more thoughts about the spreadsheet before we move on to Glenn's topic and then the lexicon? All right, Glenn, I yield the floor to your Stream 2 goals chat.
Yeah. Let me also see if I can share my screen. You should be able to see it now, I guess.
Yes.
All right. So we went actually over the different items. We copied the structure. It's still a bit of a hot mess because yeah, for reasons. But actually, when we were going more in depth, we actually thought, okay, a couple of the items actually in there, the goals, and let me go over the ones that actually are like this one, the 2.5. Member organization asked to contribute existing internal SecDev training materials. Well, the first stream is all about curating and creating content and materials, right? So we thought like, yeah, some should this not be moved to stream 1? Does it make sense? I mean, it's not a big goal here in this case, but still it does make a lot of sense to actually put that in the curating stream. It's only
I would +1 that.
Yeah, unfortunate Dave is not here to also well give his opinion. But yeah, at least from our point of view, it made a lot of sense to actually move this one.
Dave,
I don't think Dave would have any
said-
objections, but I do not have an objection to that. That was kind of the intention of this exercise, is as we're going through and refining these things, we may need to shuffle order or move things around. So I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Okay. Meeting notes.
Real quick, Glenn. Krob also, because I still have a lot of things to add here. So there was a concern, is like, because we already have 13 things. So there was also a concern as far as length.
I'm not concerned about length. When everybody's done with their estimates and we have it all looking and talking the same way, I'm going to shove it back into one giant document to hand back to the TAC and the governing board.
Fair.
So the length I'm not concerned about. Put whatever detail you feel is useful to you, and if we need to, I may summarize when we pass up potentially, because a governing board member doesn't need technical details necessarily about, we need to install this widget to make SKF work right and tweak.
So let me ask you this. So like when I say things like I automate like David Wheeler's repo or course and like repo to check into the graph.
Yep.
Should I? But I know that also needs to be done with every other course. So should I list them all out, or can I just make that one line item? Like,
do you think you'll work on other courses and automate them in 2023?
well, if you actually look at this, we're actually proposing basically doing focusing on on David's course and the ASVS and WSTG because Glenn, if you scroll up, so we already have a large part of that covered, but we're missing like 180 labs currently to have full coverage with the ASVS and WSTG. And then we wanted to add the 5 languages that we talked about. And you're talking like it's a massive amount of work. Like it right over there. Yeah.
I'm putting my program manager hat on. And that feels like a lot of scope to commit to for the first year. So I say you would cap your scope there with ASVS and OWASP and Wheeler's class. And then you can add a year 2. We would also do X, Y, and Z estimates TBD.
Okay.
Scope cop hat off. But yeah, we need to focus on what we're going to be successful for, what we think we can achieve. And, we can put other things into the backlog. And if you get done early, great, you pull the next one off the list.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also a bit our feeling that for this content creator, curator finds and goes through all the materials and selected the right ones to be consumed, etc. That will also take at least 3 months to a half year.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense to scope it like this.
And then you can put like a year 2 section saying we would address additional material and automate. And we could provide some examples or not. We don't need to put the whole backlog into the governing board presentation.
Something like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we had 2.5. Then 2.6, actually some of the things here that could fall in stream 2, but also we see that some of the things actually could be stream 1 and 3. So we thought of maybe splitting this one up, the 2.6 goal, because sponsor existing or creating alternate delivery streams for education content. So it's about podcasts as well. Randall, you also mentioned that maybe, but it's unfortunate because we don't really have it in our stream separations, but some of the things also feel a bit like marketing and outreach, sort of say.
So the idea for stream 1 is that is a body of things that exist. So David's class is already done. It's already in edX and SCORM Connect and the LF training repo. If we wanted to make a boot camp out of that would be, I would feel that would be like a new alternate delivery stream. So that's kind of new work because that's not done yet. And there would need to be some effort on that. So that's why, and stream 2 was kind of new stuff. And like you've identified a bunch of gaps. So I would be okay leaving it here just because that's how I ordered things in my head. But again, if we have strong feelings that, David already wrote a conference boot camp based off of his class and we just need to deliver it, then we could push that to stream 1 very easily.
Yeah, because so that was also our question, because stream 1 is really about curating and content and creating content. So when we talk, for example,
not creating, the stream 2 is creating.
Okay, but because then that could also be, indeed, that's also not really an issue, but I'm just thinking out loud that basically the librarian needs to have a lot of, I mean, it needs to be like a clone of David or myself, or I mean, otherwise, it's going to be pretty hard actually to do it in our stream too, right?
Yeah, and while Stream 2 contains a lot of development activities, and that's definitely something that you and the others are going to take on as the developers, I wouldn't expect that you're going to write a class on threat modeling. Maybe you could, but I would probably lean into an expert like Judy that I know we have, and if we needed a threat modeling class, so I might lean into her to help produce that particular piece of content, for example.
Yeah,
So, but
in the longer term, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just say, I think in the end, what we need to do is identify a specific, here's what we need content, and into chunks that we can then go and say, hey, we will fund people to do X, Y, and Z. Unless it already exists, which is the point of Stream 1, is try to make sure, first of all, we're not just duplicating what's already out there.
Yeah. And Stream 1 will help us create the backlog, because you already have a long list of, you Randall said there's a bunch of gaps with test coverage. So we already have identified that. You already have the beginning of the work, but eventually, Stream 1 will start to be opinionated, saying we have a lot of requests for X or Y training, and we have some content. We need to do a podcast, or we need to have a class on this. And then eventually the sections will kind of blend back into one thing, like we are here today.
Okay, and
so you volunteered to help write this part of the plan. You don't necessarily have to do every piece of it yourself.
No, that's true, but that's also what I mentioned to Randall that we have indeed people who are now already helping, right, and contributing, but for a lot of the things, we looking for unicorns basically who can help and contribute. So that's a bit and of course, we most of the things we can do, we have experience in it. I mean, but we have so much to do.
And don't get overwhelmed by that. Just just get us the list and get us the cost estimate of what you think it is, and then we'll worry about finding people. So like the podcast, that's something that I'm going to volunteer and try to collect people to do. We also have the best practices working group we can lean into for help for making content or things. So we have a lot of folks we can lean into, but right now I just need to have that kind of an initial scope and a cost so we can get formal approval on some of the things that cost money.
Okay, clear. And so as far as us in Stream 1, it's really about finding and curating the materials, and Stream 2 is also about creating gaps, materials for gaps that are identified, push back to those projects in their open data set, so we can easily have the whole machine running and updatable and all that good stuff. All right. Thanks.
Randall, and then David. You're welcome.
I grow up what we identified that we could do, because I know that we talked about bringing over the SKF team. I kind of made that little SKF ops checkbox, so that way, because there are some stuff that we think that we would be better at doing ourselves because we have experience at doing that. Another thing I was going to say is we kind of, one of the things that kind of Glenn and I talked about at length was that like we have things set up. So I know, like, for example, for the alternate streams, one way that we could distribute that is through the SKF API. So that way you could, it would be an easy way for people to just pull from the API. They could pull all their content, and, they could also like pull groups of contents because it is a graph database. But that's also why we kind of discussed this before. One of the things that we wanted to do was move like the librarian over, because the librarian does need to know a bit about how graph databases are structured.
The 3 sections are an artificial construct to help us divide, delegate, and accelerate our work on the plan. The SIG will be responsible for all this work. So even though like today you're Stream 2, you're helping work on Stream 2, once we publish the plan, we give the plan up, that stream 2 is gone. It's just, we'll have a bunch of issues to start working through that you'll grab.
Right.
And if there's a team of SKF developers that are appropriate to work on things, those issues would get fobbed over there to their queue. Whereas, like speaking at conferences, maybe, we have people that want to volunteer that want to go speak at conferences for that type of stuff. So we'll figure out the distribution of work later. We need to get the plan done.
Right on. Right on.
But it's the royal we all will be helping out wherever we have ability and time.
Fair.
Plus we need to recruit other people. David.
Yeah, so I think we need to focus for expand training. It's, hey, the goal is to just identify what's missing, not to build it before creating the plan. Right now we're creating the plan, and it doesn't always have to be any particular approach. We just need to identify it. I just want to make sure it's in the outputs that it's clear enough to, what's just a mention versus what's really drilled down into. So for example, unsurprisingly, a survey course like the fundamentals course, there's a section specifically on threat modeling. It goes through some basics, but and that sort of thing. So if you want a more in depth, you need to say, hey, more in depth, maybe some idea of the content or how long or something to indicate that this is not just a section of a work, but something deeper.
Yeah.
You don't have to say everything that's in there, of course, just, an idea of how much more are you expecting in that as an increment.
And that's, this is going to be very iterative for how we're going to approach this is, yes, we have some threat modeling stuff. We might get feedback from learners. This was interesting. I'd like to know more. And that's where we might spin off an additional, whether we augment that module or we spin up an additional kind of intermediate or advanced module on that particular topic. But that's, future work. Let's understand what exists. And then we'll actually go out and talk to real learners and see what they would like more of. Max.
I'm not sure if it's the best time to kind of flag this, but I've noticed Major League Hacking and I just mentioned a few times in this section. I thought it might just be helpful. No, I'm very pleased about it, and I had a great conversation with Christine yesterday as well about the partnership potential. I think I probably just want to just clarify very quickly. We do create content, particularly help people build out the application of sort of theoretical content. But I think the real opportunity here is for us to operate really as a channel or a content delivery mechanism to get to get this training, this opportunity out to the very large community of early career developers that we, with 150,000 people in the last year who have attended our events and programs, and particularly I think a powerful mechanism for supporting some of those underserved and underrepresented groups as well. So just wanted to sort of start by putting that out. Please do let me know, here or asynchronously, how I can provide, more input about how we think to approach that and how we can fit that into our sort of, broader approach, and obviously getting into, community models. I'm very happy to support on that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Max. I appreciate that. All right. Anything else you wanted to cover on this, Glenn?
Well, so for this one, develop in-person education, that we had also, well, it's not stream 1 anymore, stream 2, because we also will create materials, so that clears a lot up. The other thing we were actually discussing, it would make more sense actually to make this a year 2 goal, because we have then experience with what type of material, how easily it was, etc., what we have, and then as a year 2 goal actually develop the training for boot camps. And luckily for all right, perfect. Then we had 2.8 partnership with undeserved communities and alternative learning paths.
Yes.
We thought this would better belong to stream 1 actually to do this with the content.
That's fine.
curator.
It doesn't matter where it lands as long as we do it. We feel very strong. This is a value we kind of hold pretty dearly. So it doesn't matter tactically where that sits. That's cool. Now, do you want to file a PR to add that, or would you like me to do that?
No, I will make a PR because also I saw in the and similar for this one, by the way, I think then we are through the whole list that I actually want to discuss. Partnership with traditional education bodies. I mean, Stream 3 is really into the incentives and building those relations. So we thought maybe that one would fit better there. And yeah, also for the one, actually, indeed, I saw there's still some old sections as well, like this section that needs to be updated. And also, for example, this moved to our space.
Oh, I'm glad you highlighted that. Is that looks very empty, and people have had very strong feelings about that. And
Yep.
I'm stunned no one has written down any of their feelings about it. So
well,
do we feel that belongs in Stream 2?
Well, and
Or one?
more importantly, do we think it belongs in year 1? Because it
Oh,
looks like that.
I don't think it's
the
year
problem
1.
is-
But
I'm sorry?
I don't think it belongs in year 1.
Okay, I think you just answered the question of why nobody's written anything there.
Oh, we've had very heated and passionate eulogies about how this is the most important thing that this group's doing. Yet, it's not important enough to write down any notes about.
Well, that might be my fault because I was part of a lot of those discussions that happened like because of those impassionate discussions, and we kind of hit a roadblock, which was that we don't know what to do.
Well,
So let's find out where to put it in the plan, and let's move it to year 2. That is a very big thing, and I understand it, I recognize its importance, but that's a lot, and we've already committed to do a lot.
Exactly.
Quick question, Crow. How I did break this down with that, that's correct, right? That's what you wanted?
So mostly this part.
Yeah, the first part.
So
is that correct?
Yeah.
How we did that?
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
We will.
You know how I'm in.
You
I'm
have
in
little
the tables
little
now.
icons.
Well, you know, I even have a
showing
legend.
off.
Go up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. I have a legend. There's my
I see
legend.
that. I like that.
All right. So I think that is it. So we will do a PR for the plan 1.0 first and move the stuff we think should be there and update and remove the ones that were already moved but not reflecting there yet. And then we will.
Glenn, did you want to
working-
talk about the librarian as well? Because
yeah, kick it off, maybe. True.
Say that
think
again?
Yeah, I think we said that the OER librarian should still be here in Stream 1 budget, but all the other stuff actually about the platform, yada yada, that can go out because that's part of the SKF operations or services, whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, again, we want to make sure that we felt strongly that that's a role we wanted to have, somebody to help manage and curate the content ongoing.
Yeah.
Because that's not my full-time job.
And then, Randall, what was your question? If it should be part of
remember we talked about how like at the end of the day, only David and you are pretty much the only people that know how to like could break down the whole scope because eventually there's going to be so one of the concerns we had, just to make it clear, right now currently we don't have overlap in our database. So when we start checking in all this content, eventually we will create overlap, and that's where like the overlap needs to be intelligently done, because if there's too much overlap, the database will slow down or crawl.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why there was a concern with like the librarian and SKF ops essentially working together. So we'll make a PR Crope about that.
And so there will be a PR for hire the librarian. and we'll need to create that job description. So I would welcome your feedback on some additional skills we would like to have that person to have, if you need to have them to have some ability for database management or SQL things. We'll get those added in as asks for the job description.
Okay. I think that a lot of that
This person's job isn't to be a DBA, just saying that the intention is a little
I
different.
think that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's what we would want to do at SKF Ops, is to make sure that the database doesn't take like 45 minutes to complete a query.
Yeah. Well,
because that's the thing about graph databases, is that if you start going like overlapping stuff and it starts to get too crazy, it can get real slow.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else, Glenn? I'd like to talk about the lexicon. I don't know if you or Avishai had put that in there.
I put it in there, but I just knew we needed to talk about it. So that's why I put it in there.
Well, there's a PR that we've been talking about, and we've been talking about structures and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
And are we looking for more feedback? Are we looking for a decision? What are we looking for? Can we start moving?
Feedback would be excellent. We are integrating Algoria search so that we could have very cool search functions, so you could do crazy stuff with your search. But that's just because we have time to kill. But like, we would like feedback, I think, on the directory structure, what people think. I kind of proposed something, which is kind of what me and Avishai gronked out here. So yeah, we would definitely appreciate feedback, I think. I don't know if Avishai has anything to add.
Yeah, maybe specifically feedback around the actual classification of the definitions as they are in the PR now. And one more interesting discussion, which Randall, Jeff, and I are having on the pull request, is around adding material from organizations. For instance, our discussion is around the SNCC definition for CVE. And the question came up, should we use like organizational, non-open organization definitions in this glossary, or if we can avoid it, should we?
For like CVE, I would prefer that we took the CVE programs definition. But we'll get to like pedigree and provenance. We'll have some debate about specific development concepts.
Yeah, because
yeah,
I think also a bit in this discussion that we have was about the vendor neutrality and that it not becomes a marketing type of glossary.
Exactly,
right. We don't want that.
Yes.
Yeah, there's direct value on these, just to highlight sort of from my comment on the PR, and not that anyone's trying to do that. So not saying that, but I'm a Sonar type, so we could do it too. And like I say, there's Linux is in there. We could put a billion of them, but a property like OpenSSF has pretty good SEO and will over time. That will get better because of everything we're doing. So it'll be a place where someone will go, I'm going to get my article or my blog post up there. That was the reaction when I circulated this internally and was like, I think we should go with, sort of, if there is a good neutral source, start there. And then we can look at things like, what are SEO results today for other things that we put in CVE? What comes back in those results? If someone's ranking high, we can. In the case of the SNCC definition, it wasn't even on the first page of Google results. I think Linux is actually the top, the Red Hat is actually the top definition for CVE. It outranks the CV site, but
nice.
That was my
I had proposed maybe putting in like a simple voting system. One thing I also wanted to point out is that I think that different definitions are defined from different points of view. So I think that I don't think that there's necessarily one's better than the other. Sometimes I think that they're just coming at it from different points of view. So kind of what I was imagining and what we have set up is that if you put CVE, it's going to pull back every single CVE definition we have. I don't want to, I'm with everybody's opinion. but I would let our users rank what they find most useful and go from there.
I want to push back just a little bit. I do
Sure.
think that some definitions are better than others. I do get the point that maybe we should try to avoid linking to specific vendors if we can. I mean, I mean, I'm sure we can find exceptions, but I generally prefer either government sites because usually they already have to deal with the wending the way through different parties. And oddly enough, Wikipedia is often a pretty good source of definitions because if you want to watch an edit war, watch an edit war over a definition of some page. So I mean, I'm not sure I want to be in one of those edit wars, but the good news is that when they're done with their edit war, usually they've managed to find a compromise between multiple parties that gets multiple different viewpoints pulled in. So, you know, it doesn't always make it the best, but those are two actually often decent sources for definitions that deal with the problems that you just mentioned. Because it's not just, hey, I actually don't mind pointing occasionally to, you know, hey, vendors doing something great. I'm glad when vendors do good. It's awesome. But they obviously have their particular perspective. And I think that's the real issue. I don't mind giving somebody a little SEO, but I would want to make sure that we see all perspectives.
Agreed. Although I think we should be careful with government, that because some people, and I mean, you know, the security industry in general has PTSD with that word.
Yeah,
Government. Too bad you still got one.
U.S.
Dan?
government, I would say specifically.
Just remember, there are multiple governments, there are multiple countries in the world. Okay, speaking as a resident of the United Kingdom, I happen to know this. Right?
Right.
Okay.
When I say government, I don't mean any particular government. I mean any a government.
People often, when people I've found in this forum or in OpenSSF talk about government, they love to talk about government and the executive order, and they don't even say executive order. They say EO or whatever. You know, there's just a lot of very U.S. government specific lingo flying around in OpenSSF, and just keep, you know, as an expat myself, somebody from the U.S. who lives in the U.K., I pick up on this. This is a what do you call it? A special, I don't know,
trigger
noir for me.
I've
anyway,
been in a number of European meetings where they do exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
when they
know,
say government,
like,
they mean EU only.
Let's all try and keep have some multicultural, multicultural awareness. That's all. So,
Agree.
I'm getting off my soapbox.
Dan?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and just kind of reiterating what Dan also said, you know, I am from the UK, but kind of what we use a lot in the UK is the NIST recommendations a lot of the time. So maybe that's a good authoritative source to kind of recommend for a lot of definitions. It's the one that I've used in my kind of cybersecurity training. It's pretty robust. They're pretty vendor neutral, you know, and that's it. I think, and again, reiterating what everyone else said, I think if you have a vendor that has a subject matter expert, it would make sense to use it then, you know, but for general things like a CV or, you know, very generic terms, it makes sense to use the most neutral thing, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you for that perspective. Yeah, NIST is an amazing resource, and NISA has good resources. Every locality has some value to add. So let's not be exclusively focused on one area. But we know that NIST has helped standardize a lot of things within security around they're a role model. Might not be the best example all the time, but they're definitely used as a role model. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time and attention today. If you have any additional feedback, you want to continue the conversation, do that in Slack or on the mailing list. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks or at a sub call soon. And thank you for all the amazing work. I'm really excited to see this develop the way it is. Thank you all, and have a great day.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.